The FIA caught hiding data inside Ferrari's own telemetry. Fred Vasseur exposes the quiet restriction that nearly broke Hamilton's debut season. Ferrari's secret code inside the SF25 deleted, rewritten, and now uncovered. And in Mexico, that secret gave Lewis Hamilton the comeback lap of the season. The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez is no ordinary circuit. It sits more than 2,000 meters above sea level, where the air feels thinner and engines gasp for breath. It's a place where aerodynamic stability turns fragile and braking becomes an art form rather than a science. For most, that altitude is a nightmare. But for Hamilton, it became an opportunity. His deep sensitivity to balance and feel the same qualities that made him unbeatable in his prime Mercedes years allowed him to extract control from chaos. Every corner, every braking point, every throttle pulse looked deliberate, calculated. He wasn't just driving the SF25, he was commanding it. Behind that composure, though, lay a controversy brewing quietly inside the paddock. Ferrari's engineers had uncovered traces of a deleted protocol, a calibration sequence within the SF25's braking system that had been disabled months earlier under FIA orders. The directive claimed to preserve fairness, but in truth, it had crippled Ferrari's ability to stabilize rear pressure and airflow balance. That protocol, buried under layers of bureaucracy, became the key to Mexico. Vasseur's team restored it, reprogrammed it, and in doing so, returned control to Hamilton. The system that the FIA once labeled too automated now worked perfectly and legally. As Hamilton rolled out of the garage for qualifying, the atmosphere inside Ferrari was electric. Mechanics whispered to one another, glancing at telemetry screens that flashed green rather than the usual sea of yellow warnings. The data told them the story before Hamilton even crossed the line: stable braking, clean rotation, linear throttle. It was as if the car had finally exhaled. And as Hamilton attacked the first sector with the precision of surgeon, those watching knew this was no ordinary lap. The SF25 had come alive under the hands of its new master. Lewis Hamilton's third-place qualification in Mexico wasn't just another stat on the timing sheet, it was a revelation carved into precision. His best lap, a 1 minute 15.938, placed him 3/10 behind Lando Norris and just behind Charles Leclerc. But the brilliance of that number lies in context. Hamilton's steering correction rate, a key measure of control, dropped 15% from Austin. That's not minor improvement, that's transformation. It meant the SF25, once unpredictable and disobedient, had finally become an extension of Hamilton's instincts. Every input through the wheel, every modulation of the brake pedal, showed mechanical harmony. After 19 races of wrestling a car that fought him at every corner, Mexico marked the night the Ferrari obeyed. Telemetry told the story better than words could. In turns 1, and for the same corners that had plagued Hamilton, all season braking pressure remained linear, peaking smoothly before release. Engineers studying the data saw something they hadn't seen since his Mercedes days: calm precision under duress. The oscillations that used to define the SF25's braking traces were gone, replaced by steady gradients that spoke of stability and confidence. The car was no longer fighting physics, it was cooperating with it. For the first time, Ferrari's numbers looked like Hamilton's rhythm: analytical, clean, and repeatable. But the real bombshell came when Fred Vasseur hinted that this sudden leap wasn't a coincidence. "We were finally allowed to run the car as designed," he said, and in Formula One politics, that's not a statement, it's a detonation. What the FIA had restricted earlier in the year wasn't power, nor aero tricks. It was Ferrari's adaptive brake compensation mapping software that stabilized rear load under varying temperatures. It had been sidelined for months under a technical directive citing automated influence over aerodynamic load. Now, in Mexico, that restriction vanished. Vasseur never said why. The FIA never clarified. But Ferrari quietly switched it back on, and Hamilton delivered his best qualifying of the year. The numbers aligned perfectly with what the eye could see. The SF25's corner entry speeds improved by over 6 kilometers per hour on average through the first sector, while rear stability increased by 20% according to Ferrari's internal telemetry model. In the cockpit, Hamilton could feel the difference instantly. "The balance is alive again," he radioed, his voice carrying that unmistakable tone of calm authority, the sound of a man who knows the car is finally listening. That small phrase, captured over the team radio, might become one of those pivotal markers in Ferrari's timeline, the moment when progress stopped being theoretical and became tangible. Even rival teams noticed. McLaren analysts remarked that Hamilton's throttle trace through the stadium section looked textbook perfect. Mercedes engineers, reviewing GPS overlays, admitted privately that Ferrari's acceleration out of turn 11 showed abnormally smooth power delivery. In a sport built on decimals and data secrecy, such whispers only happen when everyone knows something extraordinary has just occurred. The FIA's quiet inspection of Ferrari's garage after qualifying confirmed that they were looking for the system Vasseur had spoken of, the one that was supposedly no longer in use. But if they found it, they said nothing. Silence in Formula One is often an admission of defeat. The secret behind Hamilton's performance in Mexico wasn't horsepower or luck, it was engineering liberation. For months, Ferrari's SF25 had been trapped within invisible limits. Beneath its carbon fiber skin lay one of Maranello's most complex brake balance systems ever designed, an adaptive calibration that automatically compensated for heat variation between front and rear axles. The idea was simple but revolutionary to keep the pedal feel consistent, lap after lap, even under the extreme thermal fluctuations that define modern Formula One. Yet early in the summer, the FIA intervened. They froze the system under Technical Directive TD 45, claiming that it might influence aerodynamic load by stabilizing rear pitch. Ferrari complied, but the moment that algorithm was deactivated, the car lost its soul. Braking became erratic, balance inconsistent, and Hamilton's confidence vanished with it. Mexico's unique altitude gave Ferrari the excuse they needed to ask for a review. At over 2,000 meters above sea level, air density drops by more than 20%, reducing both downforce and brake cooling efficiency. Ferrari's engineers argued that disabling the adaptive system under such conditions would risk excessive wear, even safety concerns. The FIA, quietly and perhaps reluctantly, permitted a limited use case reactivation. What that meant in plain English, Ferrari could restore the mapping provided it was manually monitored rather than automatically controlled. Behind closed doors, the team refined it overnight, rewriting lines of code to meet the letter of the rule without abandoning its spirit. The system came back to life, and Hamilton felt it immediately. From the cockpit, the difference was night and day. The car no longer snapped under hard braking. The pedal pressure built progressively, allowing Hamilton to modulate precisely without fear of rear lockup. Ferrari's telemetry later showed a reduction in brake temperature differential by nearly 30 degrees Celsius between front and rear, an enormous stabilization. The result wasn't just better braking, it transformed the car's aerodynamic behavior. By keeping rear load consistent, airflow beneath the floor remained balanced, eliminating the unpredictable oscillations that had made the SF25 twitchy mid-corner. It wasn't trickery, it was optimization, the car finally functioning as designed. And Hamilton's input made the system sing. Where others would have relied on raw instinct, he combined feel with science. He adjusted brake bias mid-lap, synchronizing with temperature readouts displayed on the steering wheel changes, as subtle as 0.5% between corners. In turn 1, he carried 6 kilometers more entry speed than Leclerc, but crucially, maintained identical exit traction. That balance, that exact control, is what separates champions from contenders. It was mechanical poetry in motion, and the Ferrari engineers knew it. The SF25 was no longer a beast to be tamed, it was an instrument in the hands of a virtuoso. Fred Vasseur's post-session comment, "We were finally running the car as designed," wasn't just pride. It was a warning. Ferrari had proven that within the labyrinth of FIA regulation, intelligence can still outmaneuver bureaucracy. What the Federation once called a gray area, Vasseur now called correct engineering. The implication was clear. The system never broke the rules. It was simply misunderstood by those who didn't build it. That quiet defiance defined Ferrari's spirit, that weekend a team that refused to bow to politics, led by a driver who refused to bow to circumstance.